Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 29th Annual Manchester Historic Association Historic Preservation Awards. And welcome to the 29th Annual Manchester... There we go! Our numbers may be a little fewer this year because of you-know-what, but hopefully we're all going to have a good time, and hopefully we're going to be in and out in an hour. And then we invite you to stay afterwards for coffee and dessert. My name is Ed Bruder. I'm a trustee, and I look a lot like the guy on the screen there, a doppelganger. We hope most of you are up at the Research Center just up the street in Amherst and able to enjoy our 125th anniversary toast. It's an important occasion for us this year, a big milestone, and we've had sort of a muted celebration because of the COVID situation. But it's important that the work of this organization continue. Since 1986, our mission has been the collection, preservation, and sharing of the history of Manchester. At this point, I'd like to welcome someone who has done yeoman service this year in the most bizarre set of circumstances, trying to plan a live event like this, but has been a trooper all the way, and that's our president and the chair of our Board of Trustees, Colleen Kurlansky.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening. On behalf of the Manchester Historic Association, I would like to welcome you all to our 29th Annual Historic Preservation Awards. We missed seeing you in person last year as we went virtual like many nonprofits did, and I'm so pleased to see so many of you here in person tonight. I hope I had a chance to speak with most of you at the reception. This past year, I'm just going to reflect for a minute, 18 months or so, has really been a time of gratitude and thanks for me as president. Thanks for a small but very mighty staff and fellow trustees who have exhibited tireless support. I'm especially grateful to you, our members, partners, supporters, and most of all our volunteers who have stood right with us. Your continued support and, of course, dedication is heartwarming and has really kept us going this past year. Thank you all for being here and for supporting us in our mission to collect, preserve, and share the history of Manchester. Your support is vital and very much appreciated. In a short bit, you'll be able to see what we've been able to accomplish over this period of time and how your support has positively impacted our community. I would also like to extend congratulations to all of our honorees this evening, and we've got several Century Club Award recipients as well. Please let me take a moment to introduce our newest trustees, since it's been a couple of years since we've been able to meet in person, and ask if they would please stand. Those joining us in 2020 include Bonnie Doherty, Mary Lou Ashulazos, Jean Martin, and Walter Milne. Thank you. And in 2021, Benjamin Horton, Jennifer Drosiak, Jeffrey Murdoch, and Amanda Quinlan. And I'd also like to ask for the rest of our board to stand, please, and just be recognized for a minute. And I want to thank our board for sharing your talents, your energy, and your passion with the MHA. Please note there is a list of all of our trustees in tonight's program. I also want to just give a final thank you to the event committee and my co-chair for this event, Laura Gamache. Where is Laura?
She might be
and the committee has just spent many hours through discussions, how to handle this. I just appreciate everything they did in making tonight a special evening for all of our honorees and our guests. As president, I've bestowed with many honors tonight, which is very nice, to be honest. I've had some trials and tribulations this year, so honors are wonderful. And my next honor is to introduce our honorary co-chairs, who are making history tonight, actually, by being the first couple in this role. Their philanthropic efforts in the community are significant, and we are grateful for their willingness to take on this role and for their dedication in making tonight, this event, a success. Please welcome Joan and Howard Brodsky, and thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Colleen. And Joan and I are very proud to be part of this event tonight. You know, Manchester to us is home. You know, I moved here when I was 5 years old. I didn't move here. I guess my parents moved me here. I came along as a willing person being transported. But I remember so many years ago when Elm Street was part of Ferretti's Supermarket and Morrow's hardware store, and I see, some of the head shaking. And it was before the malls existed. And, I look today and I see Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart, and somehow I think 50 years from now, there will not be an historic association of saving the Walmart or saving the Home Depot or saving the Lowe's, because they do not have heritage and they don't have meaning. It's about the community and what is built locally that really counts.
And I, unlike Howard, am kind of a transplant to Manchester. And when we were getting married, I thought we should live in Hollis and have a roundhouse. And Howard was very generous in kind of thinking about it, but I knew he wasn't serious. So we ended up moving to Manchester, and I have come to just love being in this city because it's small enough that everyone knows your name. And I have also come to understand the value of the mills and the value of the history here and how rich and deep and complex it makes this city. So it's really good for business, for the arts, for everything, for us to have a historical association that interprets the city for the unique city that it is.
Our company has been in the mill yard for 30 years. So originally we were in Dean Kamen's building for about 15 years. And I think I used to stand near the vents just hoping by osmosis that I would pick up some innovation that was coming through from Dean Kamen's office. I'm not sure if it happened or not, but I was hopeful. But I think it's so interesting to understand from the mills that started in 1831 and closed in 1936 in bankruptcy, and how it was, at the time, one of the most innovative companies in the world. I mean, it was obviously the largest cotton factory in the world. And we look now, almost 200 years later, and I think there's a new generation of innovation happening in this city that's quite amazing. You look down and you see Southern New Hampshire University and what Paul LeBlanc is doing. He is the leading innovator in education in America. Not in Manchester, not in New Hampshire, but literally it's the largest university now in the United States, and it's becoming worldwide now. And you look at Dean Kamen, it has over 1,000 patents, and leading innovator in the world. And I think we're in the next generation of leaders that maybe have built upon the heritage that happened 200 years ago, of the wonderful leaders that came here and said, you know something, this is a city that we could create something very unusual. And I think the heritage of the buildings, we're fortunate to be in Arthur Sullivan's building now, and have been there for 15 years. And I know all of the people that work there feel this tremendous sense of heritage when you come in there. And there's so much to be saved and so much to be learned from where we are. And I always think our past is the bridge to our future.
And obviously, that's a great line. Our past is our bridge to the... He thought about that. I said, you want to try to plan this together? But he had his show. I can see. But again, I am a trustee at Canterbury Shaker Village, and I am very aware of how hard it is to get people to be interested in the past and our antiquities. All of us, I'm sure many of us have had an opportunity to go to Europe and see how they honor their antiquities. And we're a wonderful, vital country that's always moving forward and looking forward. Without the context of the past, our forward isn't nearly as interesting or well-informed. So I'm so impressed with how John and his team have A, led this event, B, as I enter into that museum more and understand more what they do, impacted our city, impacted it for all of us, for business people to have something really vital to show off and do their business as a backdrop for the arts to come from. And I'm so glad you're here to support the Manchester Historical Society and the Millyard Museum. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're both very proud to be here and be part of this event. And I think the work John has done and continues to do is such an important part of keeping the city and the heritage so vital. Thanks so much.
The job of being co-chair for this event is a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of personal contacts, doing a lot of work out in the pucker brush, networking. And I can tell you that it's interesting to hear both Joan and Howard talk about leadership, because they have displayed that in great quantities during this process. So we all thank you very much for being our co-chairs this year. Thanks. Joan mentioned John, and I think everybody in New Hampshire knows who she speaks. We're talking about the Executive Director of the Manchester Historic Association, John Clayton.
How come you get the podium with the good lighting? Just checking. I don't have my full script, Ed.
You don't? Well, you can take mine.
Hang one second. I actually just want you to enjoy that image while I'm standing here.
Bottom of the page.
Okay, thank you.
Although that will cost you.
I got it.
First of tonight.
So I want to recognize our major sponsors this evening. Again, as Colleen said, we could not do this without you, and we're grateful for your support. And it begins with Joan and Howard Brodsky, who are our anniversary sponsors. Our lead sponsors, Brady Sullivan Properties, Southern New Hampshire University, RBC Wealth Management, the Hood Wealth Solutions Group. And don't think Joan and Howard didn't have a lot to do with them being on board. Our award sponsor, you'll hear more about them tonight, is People's United Bank. Our dessert sponsors include Eastern Bank of New Hampshire, Joan Brodsky and the New Hampshire Dance Collaborative, and St. Mary's Bank. Thank you. You have also heard allusions to our great but mighty staff, pardon me, great but tiny staff, which consists of two other individuals. There is me, the most expendable of the three, Christy Ellsworth, our museum educator. Christy, stand up, whether you want to or not.
She up there, she's up top.
Yeah. She's not very tall, and she's in the balcony on top of it all. And Daniel Peters, who is our archivist and acting head's groundkeeper. So if you appreciated the look of our research center when you were there for the reception, please know that a lot of that was the work of Daniel Peters and our good friends Gail York and the Manchester Women's Garden Club. Did a beautiful job with those new mums, so a very seasonal look. And we hope you appreciate that building and tell more people about it. We would love to have people come to the research center. One of the great thrills of my life is when I went into that building and I held my grandfather's labor card from Amoskeag Manufacturing. It's there for you. It's your history. We try to preserve it and share it, so help us do that. Okay. In the early months of 2020, if you can remember back that far, our Millyard Museum was welcoming visitors from all over the globe. With the eyes of the nation tuned to New Hampshire for our quadrennial first-in-the-nation presidential primary, we met that gaze with an extraordinary exhibit, Manchester and the Path to the Presidency. To further accommodate political tourists to Manchester, the MHA offered historic trolley tours to visit famous campaign sites, and we sold out every tour. Then came this. On March 16, the Millyard Museum went into complete shutdown. Well, not complete shutdown. In the days following the primary, our staff at the Millyard Museum was in the midst of installing a new exhibit on Manchester's urban ponds. Working in partnership with the City of Manchester's Department of Public Works Environmental Protection Division, we celebrated the accomplishments of the Urban Pond Restoration Program over the course of 20 years. The exhibit's scheduled opening date, April 15, 2020, came and went without visitors. But when we were able to reopen the museum to visitors on July 1, 2020, it became a major attraction in town. To accommodate suggested health protocols, our outdoor walking tours were modified, but with masks and carefully orchestrated choreography, we were able to offer walking tours of the Millyard. Thanks to our friends at the Majestic Theater, we produced actor-driven tours of the Mount Calvary and Valley cemeteries that were enormously successful. From an educational standpoint, thanks to a grant from Amoskeag Industries, the MHA was able to produce a meticulous 10-part video tour of the Millyard Museum in conjunction with the Manchester School District. With in-person attendance, the video tour was supplemented with hands-on worksheets produced by museum educator Christy Ellsworth, and the finished video was made available and remains available for classes to view in individual segments that are suitable for homeschooling, hybrid learning, or in-person instruction. With in-person attendance on the uptick, our Millyard Museum staff opened another exhibit, Pandora by Design, Sweaters from the Millyard, which celebrated the legacy of local textile giant Pandora Industries. The company employed more than 1,000 workers, and in its heyday, it was producing more than 60,000 sweaters per week. That exhibit ran through August 31. At the moment, we're about to begin installation of a statewide photo exhibit in conjunction with the New Hampshire Historical Society and several other nonprofits and museums throughout the state. Originally, it was to be called New Hampshire 2020, and 2020 didn't happen. So it's now called New Hampshire Now. We'll be having a grand opening on October 5, and we hope you'll join us. And then we will celebrate the 20-year legacy of the Queen City Athletic Hall of Fame, which recognized outstanding athletes from Manchester's past. It would be an understatement to say that the past year has been a challenge, but with support from our board and the work of our small but amazing staff, we didn't just survive. We like to think we thrived. Thank you.
Could we bring up the house lights, please?
Oh, you want it back?
I need the next page. That one.
That page.
Thank you.
Where's my page? Okay.
This is the portion of the program where we're going to try to part you with any extra cash that you might have brought with you tonight. We lovingly call this our ask, but it's the part of the program which seriously helps us raise money that's needed to run the operation. As you may know, we don't receive any city, federal, or state funding at all, so we're dependent upon our supporters to fulfill our mission.
This is also a good time to point out that our friends at People's United Bank have made a challenge pledge to match your donations up to the $3,500 level. We are grateful to our friend and benefactor Diane Mercier for issuing this challenge to those of you who are with us tonight. And let's see if we can blow past that $3,500 amount, because there's no better day in the year when Diane has to hand me a check for $3,500. Tell her I said that when you see her.
Okay. So this is the part where you're going to see some of our trustees in the audience. They have little packages of different colored cards. They're color-coded because each color corresponds with a particular dollar amount. That will enable us to process pledges most efficiently after you're leaving tonight at the end of the program.
So where should we begin? Let's try the $1,000 level. For example, your donation of $1,000 could help subsidize a new exhibit at the Millyard Museum, such as our recent exhibit on the history of Pandora sweaters or our upcoming exhibit on the history of the Queen City Athletic Hall of Fame. Is there anyone who will pledge at the $1,000 level? We do 3 or 4 original exhibits each year now, and we would love to have your support for that particular program.
John, my partner Arthur Sullivan and my partner Andy Cruz and I will pledge the $3,500.
They've matched Diane Mercier and People's United Bank $3,500.
If you couldn't see, that was Dick Anagnost. Thank you very much, Dick.
Dick Anagnost, Andy Cruz, and Arthur Sullivan. So we good to go then?
I think we are, although, but let's not stop there. Are there any other $1,000 pledges? And the trustees who are monitoring the balcony, just shout it out if you have one, because we can't see you very well up there.
Michael Duffy, thank you, sir.
Okay, right. Michael, thank you very much. I see a hand. Can you get a quick name and shout it down to us? Thank you very much, Diane. Excellent. Do we have any others at the $1,000 level?
We're off to a good start.
Good, great start. So with a $500 donation, your pledge could subsidize a field trip to the Millyard Museum for an entire 4th grade class. That would include bus rental and admission fees for up to 30 students. And we do dozens of school bus tours throughout the year. So $500 would help underwrite one of those. Is there anybody that would like to pledge $500 towards the bus tour?
Let me sweeten the pot, Ed. Your $500 donation could also underwrite the cost of a year's subscription to Ancestry.com, which is used on a regular basis by researchers and genealogists at our MHA Research Center, which many of you got to visit today. So I'll repeat Ed's ask. Is anyone interested in pledging at the $500 level?
Matt Kafori in the front
row.
Matt, thank you very much. Matt's a former trustee and former president of the MHA. Anybody up top? I see a hand in the front row.
It's Dean Williams. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you very much.
And we should also acknowledge that Dean and Kathy Williams provided the champagne for the celebration of our 125th anniversary. Thank you to Dean and Kathy.
I see another hand in the second row of the balcony, and who is that? Laura Gamache. Thank you. Thank you very much. Laura is another one of our trustees and co-chair of tonight's event. Any other $500 pledges? Where is here? It's very top of the balcony, last row. Thank you very much.
Ed, if I raise my hand, do I get credit for it, or do you?
Yeah, we'll give you.
Okay,
It depends. Will your check clear? I think it will. We can
Quick,
talk.
my wife's at work. Hurry up.
Oh, that's right.
Process this.
All right, so we have a pledge for $500 from John. Thank you. Anybody else? Then let's move to the $250 level. You can help extend our onsell.com audio tour at the Millyard Museum. This is something you can do in the museum or anywhere in the world for that matter. You log into this website, we give you the password, and you can actually get an audio tour of the museum. It's great for when you're there in person or with a group of people, and it's a great use of technology in the museum. Anybody that would like to bite? And I see one in the top row, or near the top row. Want to shout out a name? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
A whole family there.
Thank you, folks.
Any other $250 donations? We see one in the 1, 2, 3rd row. Are you being anonymous or is?
No, Tim Westphal.
Tim, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Paul Hoff.
That looks like Paul Hoff. Okay. Thank you, Paul, very much. Paul's wife, of course, one of our trustees. Mary Lou, is that your family? The Lazos family. Thank you. Lazos Ashu family. Thank you very much. I see another one up top. The two Bills, thank you very much. Longtime supporters of the MHA, thank you.
And I also see Ralph Sador on my right, to the far corner of the room.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you, Ralph and Frankie.
I see another one right up front here. Walt, second row. The Van Valkenburg family, thank you very much. Right there. And another one next to them. I'm sorry? Lisa Finke, thank you very much, Lisa. Are there others? I see, John, you take that side. Jeff Murdoch's got one.
Oh, Robert Harrington.
Rob, thank you very much.
Stephanie McLaughlin, right behind Rob. Jeff.
Stephanie, that's great.
Wouldn't Jeff Murdoch to work handing out stars?
Doing
Judy
really well
Pence.
in the balcony.
Brent Lemire.
Brent, thank you very
Brent.
much. Another longtime supporter of MHA. The Jelinuses, Mike and Sue, thank you very much. Sue is a very hard worker on our MHA organizing committee. Anybody else upstairs? Ben, anybody on your side?
Pat is pointing.
Selma, I see your, to the end here. I'm sorry? Sue Haydock, thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
Are there others? 250, going once, going twice?
Not so fast. We should take a moment here to point out that all of those who've made pledges thus far will receive a great gift bag filled with Millyard Museum swag as a thank you for your support. The canvas tote bag itself is a gift from our friends at St. Mary's Bank, but there are a lot of goodies inside, including a book from one of your favorite authors who shall go nameless for the moment. The gift bags will also go to those who pledge at the $250 level. So as we continue at that number, if you're interested in the swag bag, we'll continue to accept gifts at the $250 level.
Stephen King? No. Just a guess. Anybody would like to go down to the $100 level? Because we realize we've been sort of in the high territory here, and I see somebody right here. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Lee.
Anybody else at the $100 level? Jeff, who do you have? Somebody with a blue star.
Oh, and Deb Landwehr, right here, in a couple rows in front. Keep going, Jeff.
Anybody in this?
Deb, raise your hand so Jeff can find you.
Is that Bob, thank you very much. Appreciate that. You'll get a blue star, I think. Is that blue for the hundreds? Yeah. Anybody else? Shannon, anybody in your neighborhood? Shannon Sullivan, thank you very much. Another one of our trustees at $100. And I think that is Mrs. McLaughlin, is it not? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne.
Anyone else? Jeff?
I'll take $100.
All right. And Walt, if you'll bring me a $100 star.
Thank you, Ed.
Anybody else? One in the balcony.
Pat Myers?
No, I don't think Pat's in the balcony, but,
No, she's down here.
but we're glad she's here. But we're glad you are too. I can't see you, but thank you.
And Judy Pence as well.
And Ben, you have another?
Thank you,
Excellent.
Jeff.
Thank you both. Thank you, Gloria and Jeff.
Jeremy Walker.
Jeremy, thank you very
Jeremy.
much.
I think that's wonderful.
What do you think? Have we squeezed hard enough?
I think we can get more people at the reception after when we serve coffee and dessert, and the bar remains open.
There's nothing at all to prevent you from going to visit John after the ceremony tonight. How about a round of applause for everybody who's donated tonight? And especially to Peoples for giving us the $3,500 pledge, which that math is more than I can do in my head, but hopefully we have met that. So if we can bring the house lights back down, we'll move on with the show. Each year, we acknowledge organizations and businesses that have reached the 100-year mark in existence. In 2021, we recognize 4 organizations that have achieved that milestone. And the first is Bellwether Community Credit Union, formed in 1921 when a group of Bell telephone workers created the Telephone Credit Union of New Hampshire to prompt thrift among its members. Accepting the award is President and CEO, Mr. Nathan Soller. Thank you, Nathan. Next is the Overhead Door Company of Manchester. Now, a century ago, most people didn't have garages. They had barns, and the doors opened left to right. Overhead Door invented the first upward acting garage door and the first automatic garage door opener back in 1926. Accepting the award is Michael Orsillo, manager of the Manchester office. I'm not sure he's with us at this point, but obviously we'll make sure that they get the award. The next recipient is E&R Cleaners, a familiar face or a familiar company to many. And unfortunately, they were not able to send a representative tonight, but we will make sure that they get their award as well. And our final Century Club recipient is the Manchester Kiwanis Club. Chartered in 1921, this was the first Kiwanis Club in New Hampshire. Its mission continues to be improving the quality of life in Manchester. Accepting the award is Club President Robert Dion.
Actually, we have a stand-in. Actually, it's Deb Landwehr, former president of Kiwanis.
And she's perfectly welcome, too. Thank you very much. You all probably realize that the coronavirus pandemic forced us to conduct a virtual presentation last year. So just to give a little extra credit where it's due, here are the winners of the 2020 Historic Preservation Awards, but please hold your applause until the end. First, the development of a Cultural Resources Award to this very building, the Rex Theater. Restoration of a Historic Site Award to the Manchester Hebrew Cemetery. A Home Renovation Award to Sharon and Scott Carnes for their home at 116 Everett Street. A Stewardship Award for Faithbridge Church at South Main and Milford Streets. Conservation of a Cultural Resource Award to the Khalil family for the Tufik H. Khalil House at 117 Heather Street. And finally, a Leadership and Advocacy Award to former Mayor and Executive Councilor Raymond J. Wazorek. Congratulations to all of last year's winners. Now, the first of our 5 historic award winners for this year recognize many of the characteristics of a vibrant community. It involves a city landmark, cultural pride, a partnership between a city agency and dedicated volunteers, and a beautiful place to spend some time outdoors. Way back when Boston area investors established the Amoskeag Manufacturing Company to build a world-class textile production community, it was the major landlord in town. Many of the well-to-do families bought block-long plots of land, agreeing not to build more than one building on the property for at least 25 years. Some of those blocks were donated by the Amoskeag Company to the city for use as parks. One of them was Tremont Common, bounded by Union, High, Pine, and Bridge Streets. On that spacious block today, you will find ample manicured lawn, ancient shade trees, a basketball court, and a monument to a Revolutionary War hero. Casimir Pulaski was a Polish nobleman, born in 1745. He served in America's Continental Army under George Washington, attaining the rank of brigadier general. Pulaski was mortally wounded in the Battle of Savannah in 1779. As the father of the American cavalry, though, he was a source of great patriotic pride to Polish Americans everywhere. Although Pulaski never traveled to Manchester, in 1933 the local Polish immigrant community asked the city to rename Tremont Common Pulaski Park. The first Pulaski Day ceremony was held there on October 12, 1933. Supporters favored a suitable centerpiece for Pulaski Park. Plans were mapped for a magnificent bronze equestrian monument. As it turns out, one of only 4 such monuments to Pulaski in the United States. Noted Manchester sculptor Lucien Hippolyte Gosselin was drafted for the design. Funds solicited from private donors were added to those provided through the federal art project of the Works Progress Administration. The statue was cast at the foundry of T.F. McGann & Sons in Boston. The base was cut from a 42-ton block of granite from a Concord quarry. The dedication took place on August 21, 1938. Manchester was renowned for its grand parades in those days, and this one featured thousands of participants and onlookers, and no less than 15 bands and drum corps. They marched to the park, where children waited for their cue to pull the covering off the new monument. In subsequent years, Pulaski Day proved to be an annual attraction with colorful parades, entertainment, food, and formal ceremonies. As time marched on, memories faded, and so did the luster of the monument. In 2016, local historic preservation activists Pat Howard and Aurora Eaton hatched a project to restore the monument. There were obvious signs of deterioration: green efflorescence or copper corrosion staining the bronze surfaces, cracking of the bronze as in this shot of the horse's legs, staining on the granite base from where rainwater had filtered through the copper ornamentation, and rust on the iron fence. Pat and Aurora inquired but discovered that no city funding was available for a restoration, so they got to work inspiring community support, lobbying city officials, and securing a bid from a Massachusetts monument specialist. In time, they earned the support of the Manchester Heritage Commission, the City Parks, Recreation, and Cemeteries Commission, Manchester's Board of Mayor and Aldermen, the Currier Museum of Art, and, of course, the Manchester Historic Association. The campaign kicked off during St. Hedwig's Polish Fest in October of 2017. Aurora used her weekly Union Leader column to publicize the event, and the public responded generously. Grants were secured from the Norwin S. and Elizabeth N. Bean Foundation, Post-1341 Catholic War Veterans, the Cogswell Benevolent Trust, the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America, the New Hampshire Society Sons of the American Revolution, the Saul O. Sedora Memorial Foundation, and the Rotary Club of Manchester, among others. In the spring of 2019, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen voted to match the $40,000 that had been raised through private sources. The extensive restoration of the monument, the granite base, and the surrounding iron fence was completed that fall. The Manchester Garden Club stepped up next, supplying volunteers and material to make improvements to the park's landscaping. Perennials were planted around the park sign. Lilac bushes were donated by the Governor's Lilac and Wildflower Commission. And in spite of COVID-19, red and white roses reflecting the colors of the Polish flag were planted around the monument's plaza. In 2020, the Manchester Kiwanis Club provided additional funding to completely refurbish the basketball court on the Pine Street side of the park. At the same time, the city installed a new fence along Pine Street, new flower beds near the court, and new seating along the park's walkways. In July of this year, an outdoor street ball tournament was held in the park. Fundraising continues, and any money left in the account will be used to maintain the Pulaski Monument. The before and after pictures speak for themselves. This public-private partnership has been a model not only for restoring an aging landmark, but also for community improvement and cooperation. If you can back up just one slide, Matt. This year's collector's Christmas ornament from the MHA, maybe hit reverse one more time, will feature Pulaski Park and is available for sale at the Millyard Museum gift shop. All right, now we can advance. Go ahead. One more. One more. It's worth looking at these again. Spectacular work. And now you'll see the Christmas ornament to which I referred. The Manchester Historic Association is proud to present this Restoration of a City Landmark Award to the City of Manchester for the Brigadier General Casimir Pulaski Monument Restoration Project. Accepting the award is Chief of the Manchester Parks, Recreation and Cemetery Division, Mark Gomez.
Expect to find this next time I come to your office.
Well, thank you, Ed, for that great presentation. And thank you, John Clayton and the Manchester Historic Association for recognizing this wonderful project to restore the Brigadier General Casimir Pulaski Monument in Pulaski Park. It's nice to take a moment to appreciate the project itself, but also all the people and organizations who made it happen. I know Ed's just mentioned several of those, but I'm going to repeat some of that. You know, it's a great honor to be up here receiving this award tonight, but I think everybody that was involved in the project knows the person who really should be honored is Aurora Eaton. And she was really the driving force. Yes. Aurora was really the driving force behind this project. I chuckled earlier this week. I reread some of the minutes from one of the Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings that she presented at advocating for funding for the project. And I will quote from her, "The statue is not supposed to be green and striped. It's supposed to be bronze. It unfortunately has a hole in the belly of the horse, and the seams are starting to show like they're going to split." Unfortunately, Aurora's not here tonight to share that kind of passion, but I did speak with her earlier today, and in typical Aurora fashion, she wanted me to thank all sorts of other people that were involved in the project, so I'm going to do my best job to kind of channel her and recognize some of the key players. I'm sure I'm going to miss a few folks, and I apologize for that in advance. But Aurora did want me to mention Patricia Howard, who was involved from the beginning of the Pulaski Monument Restoration Project and who really kind of showed the way with her work helping to restore the Stark Park monument prior. The entire Polish community, including Bishop Paul Sobakowski, yes, Marianne Squeers, William Zagadlo, and the many donors who contributed towards the project. Aurora wanted me to mention the Bean Foundation in particular as the first granting agency. The Manchester Rotary Club, which also donated money and was instrumental in promoting the project and in helping the project to gather some additional donations. The restoration work, which was mentioned, was done by a company known as Daedalus. Josh Crane is the primary person there, and as you saw from the pictures, the work is just tremendous. They also restored the Stark Park Monument, and if you haven't been to Vets Park in the last month or so, I encourage you to go because the historic fountain that has bronze statues all around it has just been restored as well. The water will be turned on soon, and the light fixtures will be restored over the course of the winter and installed as well. So just another example of the great work that they have done for us here in Manchester. Also wanted to mention my predecessor, Don Pinard, Mayor Craig, and the entire Board of Mayor and Aldermen for their financial and moral support of the project. One of the best things about the Pulaski Monument Restoration Project is a lot of the stuff that Ed mentioned. It's inspired additional work at the park. There's a new basketball court, in large part because of funding from the Kiwanis Club. Beautiful new landscaping from the Manchester Garden Club. We've installed new seating along the park's walkways, repainted the light poles, put in a bike fix-it station, and new fencing along Pine Street. It's really looking just fantastic, and I encourage you to go if you haven't been there recently. 3 things still left to do. We need to install some historic interpretive signage. We're going to be producing a booklet. This is with donations, by the way, that are still remaining from the restoration project. We're going to be producing a booklet documenting the history of Pulaski Park and listing out all the generous donors. And I hope in the near future, when everybody feels comfortable, most importantly, the indispensable Aurora Eaton will have a rededication of the entire park. So again, thanks on behalf of the City of Manchester. Thank you for this award.
Thank you, Mark. For more than 36 years, Joanne and Stephen McLaughlin worked to make their little corner of the Queen City into something better than they found it. The house at 176 Walnut Street stands among several notable historic homes in an inner-city neighborhood. Within a block or two, you can easily sense what the neighborhood might have felt like a century ago. Bankers and industrialists built beautiful homes occupying entire blocks. The Curriers, Cloughs, Chandlers, and Sullivans were all neighbors. However, the house at 176 Walnut Street today was not the first one on that property. This is an image from the 1885 Sanborn insurance map. And if you look at the lower right, you can see that there was a house located at 122 Prospect Street. It was owned by prominent builder Samuel C. Parsons, who built a house for his brother, fellow carpenter Sylvester C. Parsons. Sylvester's family lived there from 1872 to 1898. Now look at the 1915 Sanborn map of the same block. A larger house has been built farther back from the road, and starting in 1902, it had an address of 176 Walnut Street. Well, the McLaughlins came along in 1984, and they have been quiet and thoughtful stewards of their Victorian home. Previous residents included Welches, Hurds, Sturdivants, Greens, Browns, no blacks or whites as far as I could tell, and as far as we could discover, Crafts and LeMays also lived there. But it was the Parentos who embraced a mid-1950s concept pioneered by General Electric. The Wonder Kitchen featured mix or match appliances in your choice of 5 colors. Imagine having a black refrigerator. Well, the highlight of this home was GE's wall-mounted refrigerator freezer. The Parentos chose the lemon yellow kitchen appliances, which the McLaughlins inherited. The fridge hung on the wall like a set of cabinets, and it was the highlight of the house tour for the kids' friends, who were all asked to find the refrigerator, and many of whom were stumped. The cheery yellow fridge coordinated with glass front cabinets, but it was a challenge to keep 2 teenage boys fed and watered with the 10.7 cubic foot appliance. When the McLaughlins moved into the house in 1984 with 3 young children, it reeked of the 1960s with psychedelic wallpaper in several bedrooms and contact paper covering almost every horizontal surface. This green bathroom from the mid-1950s remains in its original state today. The initial round of improvements were modest, cosmetic updates to bring the house up to date. Much of the earlier interior updates were lovingly done by Joanne and Stephen themselves. Joanne has an affinity for natural woods, and she stripped much of the paint off the interior woodwork by hand. She was notorious for picking at the corner of a carpet or a tile, and next thing you know, there's a new project because there's hardwood underneath. She found beautiful wainscoting hiding under plastic tiles and hardwood floors, buried under laminate floor in the kitchen. And doors, several doors, stripped and lovingly restored, both wood and hardware. Stephen reglazed and rehung numerous windows using the original rope and original weights. Well, with the kids grown and gone, college in the rear view, work on the home escalated. In the early 2000s, Joanne and Stephen undertook the first major renovation to the property, shoring up a sagging carriage house, filling in the old partial basement once used for coal, and putting in a cement floor to make the building usable as a garage while ensuring the second floor and the cupola were preserved. Well, after that, they were on a new roll, a new kitchen and a bathroom, more cosmetic updates inside, and a thorough address of the outside of the buildings. That included new roofing over the front porch, a mostly rebuilt front porch, maintenance and repair of the cedar shakes, exterior paint, and window trim. It's worth taking a moment to just enjoy this gorgeous home. A custom iron fence was installed around the property. The stately house is currently shipshape and ready to weather the next 36 years at its post at the corner of Walnut and Prospect Streets. Our selection committee has had its eye on this property for some time, and we were very happy to receive a nomination for it this year. Unfortunately, Stephen McLaughlin died in 2016, but his wife Joan is here tonight. For their long and loving care and stewardship, the Manchester Historic Association is pleased to present a Homeowners Award to the McLaughlin family for their home at 176 Walnut Street. The photographers are multiplying.
My late husband Stephen and I could not believe our good fortune when we first purchased the shingle-style home at 176 Walnut Street in early 1984. For the first 2 years that we lived there, I woke up laughing every morning because I couldn't believe it was our home. Stephen and I shared the belief that we are merely the current stewards of the property. If maintenance, upkeep, or updating were necessary on our watch, then we felt that it was our responsibility to do what was needed and in a manner that was true to the original building. Our home became our hobby. Early improvement projects were mostly cosmetic. However, once we embarked on the serious restoration projects, we were able to reveal and preserve the home's original charm. There is nothing quite as exciting for historic preservation-minded people as uncovering southern yellow pine beadboard wainscoting under pink plastic tiles and 3 layers of paint. And now the McLaughlin family has lived in the home longer than any of its previous owners, more than 37 years. On behalf of my husband, Stephen, and I would like to thank the Manchester Historic Association for honoring us with the 2021 Homeowners Award for Historic Preservation. It was truly a labor of love.
Every once in a while, a situation develops that disrupts life in one way or another. Our next award is the story of a landmark property that was threatened with demolition, but saved through the intervention of a grassroots community effort. The story starts in Bedford in 1832 with the birth of George Byron Chandler, son of Adam and Sally, brother to Henry and John M. Chandler. The Chandler boys all worked the family farm, but their father desired that they acquire educations. In George's case, he got his at Piscataquag, Gilmanton, Hopkinton, and Reed's Ferry academies, and put his skills to work teaching school in Bedford, Nashua, and Manchester. At age 21, he joined the Boston, Concord, and Montreal Railroad for a year as a civil engineer. In 1854, Chandler entered the employ of the Kidder and Dunkley grocery business as bookkeeper. A year later, he was offered a similar position at Amoskeag Bank, where he met a man who was to become his friend and mentor, Moody Currier. Both were also involved in the establishment of the Amoskeag National Bank. George later was also elected treasurer of People's Savings Bank as well, serving as CEO of both institutions. On April 16, 1863, at the height of the Civil War, George B. Chandler and Moody Currier purchased adjoining 48,400 square foot lots from the Amoskeag Company for $325 each. The properties were separated by Beach Street, and both men built their family homes on these lots. The Curriers' brick home faced Ash Street. In the late 1920s, this was raised to make way for the world-renowned art gallery and museum that we know today. The Chandler home faced Walnut Street. The Daily Mirror newspaper reported that, quote, "The lots contain about an acre each, the southern portion of them lying on Orange Street, the northern on Myrtle, with Maple on the east and Walnut Street on the west. Mr. Chandler, whose lot is the western of the two, intends to put up a set of buildings this present season. The location is an excellent one, being at a significant elevation to give a fine view of the city. Well, George married Flora A. Daniels in 1862, but she died in childbirth 6 years later. Their baby died 8 weeks after that. George took a second wife, Fanny Rice Martin, on October 27, 1870. She was the daughter of Colonel Benjamin F. and Mary Ann Martin. The colonel had earned a fortune as head of the Amoskeag paper mill. In fact, the U.S. Census indicated that George owned $18,000 worth of real estate and a personal estate valued at $10,000 in 1862. He and Fanny had a domestic staff of 3 as well as a tenant. Well, records from the Manchester City Assessor in 1878 described the Chandler's 3-story Queen Anne Victorian as wood frame with exterior walls of brick veneer and aluminum siding. There was a slate gable hip roof, hardwood floors, 9,505 square feet in total. An 1882 publication described Chandler as a man with, quote, an ample fortune and a large income which he scatters with a free hand. It said his residence and grounds, which occupy an entire square, are among the most costly and attractive in the city and are noted as the home of good taste, elegance, and hearty hospitality. In February 1888, the Daily Mirror and American reported that, quote, Honorable G. Byron Chandler is having plans prepared for a new residence, which will be built upon the site of that now standing. In a general way, it can be said that the front of the present house will be retained as the back of the new, and a new and more commodious front erected. The L of the present structure will be removed. Lack of room and modern arrangements prompt Mr. Chandler to make the change. He also has under consideration plans for a very handsome new stable. In fact, a new front was added on the Walnut Street side, and the original 1863 structure was retained as the back of the 12-room house facing Beach Street. The first 2 floors were furnished in quartered oak, mahogany, and cherry, much of it hand-carved, with parquet floors and a spacious reception hall. There were stained glass windows at the front door and in the upper stories, tile-framed fireplaces, and an intricately carved wood staircase. Fanny Chandler spent more than $3,000 decorating the home, including painting the ceiling in old ivory and covering the walls with old rose satin brocade, heavy draperies, and matching carpets in the same shade. George Byron Chandler died in this home at 8:50 on the morning of June 29, 1905, at the age of 72. He was buried at Pine Grove Cemetery. For a time, his wife Fanny remained in the home at 147 Walnut Street, but her 2 sons had grown and moved to Europe, and it was a big house for one person. By 1910, Fanny had moved in with her elderly widowed mother at 1545 Elm Street, right across Brook Street from the current Pappy's Pizza. On November 1, 1915, Fanny Chandler sold the property for $1 and other valuable consideration to the Roman Catholic Bishop of Manchester. In all, 3 bishops lived there: George Albert Girton, John Bertram Peterson, and Matthew F. Brady. A varying number of Little Sisters of the Holy Family also lived there at various times over the years. But on June 2, 1947, former Mayor George E. Trudell bequeathed his home at 657 River Road to the diocese, with a legal clause stating the bequest was made, quote, upon the condition that the real estate shall be forever used as the private residence of the person who is the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Manchester. So from 1947 to 52, Chandler House sat vacant. Then the diocese used it to house up to 18 members of the Christian Brothers who staffed St. Joseph High School, later renamed Bishop Bradley and today known as Trinity High School. In the early 1960s, St. Hedwig Parish relocated from Pine and Merrimack Streets to the southern half of the Chandler lot. A new church and rectory were built, and the Chandler House became St. Hedwig's Convent for members of the Felician Sisters of the Third Order of St. Francis. On July 12, 2014, longtime pastor Monsignor Alfred A. Daniszewski died at the age of 95, setting into motion a chain of events. In August 2015, a parish committee issued a report acknowledging the historic nature of the 30-room convent, but admitting that it was in, quote, astonishing disrepair. Assessed by the city at $600,000, and an engineering study estimated it would cost $800,000 to restore. The report stated it has become clear to the bishop and to the parish community that St. Hedwig Parish cannot continue to maintain this building. It was decided to relocate the remaining nuns to the vacant rectory. It must be noted now that the Felician sisters took immaculate care of this building's interior. But the sagging wraparound porch, the leaking roof, the broken elevator, all were beyond their ability to maintain. Several options were developed, and the one chosen for a local realtor to list the property as available for just $29,900 with a proviso that the house be dismantled and relocated by November 30th, 2015. People in the construction industry said that scheme and deadline were impossible, estimating that moving the building could cost more than $200,000. In spite of several prospects by in spite of several proposals by qualified buyers who submitted cash deposits as a sign of good faith, the stated opinion of the diocese was that, quote, attempting to subdivide the property and sell the building is not a reasonable option given its proximity to the church and the rectory. Well, then in 2015, the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance included this building on its 7 to Save list. Numerous ideas were put forward: business condos, an inn, a single residence, space for nonprofit organizations. A group of interested neighbors, parishioners, and citizens formed a loose committee to try and resolve the fate of Chandler House. By Christmas, a Save the Chandler House page was established on Facebook. Then, stalemate. For more than 4 years, nothing happened except deterioration. In an April 2020 communication to the Courier, the diocesan position was that there was no alternative but to proceed to demolish the building. At that point, Mayor Joyce Craig appealed directly to the bishop. Last July, on a Sunday morning, public opposition to demolition of the house was finally heard. A group of protesters gathered on all sides of St. Hedwig's Church, the former convent, nearby diocesan offices, the bishop's residence, and St. Joseph's Cathedral. Then a year ago this month, it was announced that the Courier had reached agreement with the diocese to subdivide the lot and purchase Chandler House. This would be just the first step in a $1 million restoration program. In May of this year, the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance recognized the Courier Museum of Art and leaders of the Save the Chandler group who helped create a path forward for this historic home under new ownership. The Manchester Historic Association is pleased to do the same tonight, with the full expectation that in a year or two, we will gather again to recognize completion of the Chandler House renovation. For now, we salute the Courier, neighbors, friends, parishioners, activists, and everyone else whose efforts saved this special building from the wrecking ball. The MHA presents this Community Leadership and Advocacy Award to the Save the Chandler House Initiative. Accepting the award is the Director and CEO of the Courier, Alan Chong.
You have two choices. You can hang it in the museum or you can hang it in the home.
It's going to go in the house.
It's always a treat to see this all on the screen. Thank you.
Notice how John takes everybody's awards.
Well, that's interesting because in a way it's as much John's award and your award, Ed, and the community's award, because we're just one small component of a much wider community effort to save the Chandler House. Thank you for your kind words and this intricate history, which is actually a little bit more honest than I was expecting, because when I arrived in Manchester 5 years ago, I started to worry about this house, which was intricately tied to the history of the museum, was a valuable piece of architecture, not only by Manchester standards, but by world standards, and really represented an important part of the fabric, the historic fabric of Manchester, and indeed the region. And it was a very, very difficult process. As you alluded to, we worked with many different groups. We had a very fruitful relationship with St. A's College, St. Anselm's College, before their change in administration made that impossible to move forward. We entered into negotiations with the diocese, but also with developers, as you suggested, with people who were interested in saving the house in various fashions, in monetizing parts of it, in generating income from it. The prices bandied about for the house varied from $2 million to free, depending on the partnerships. It was a confusing time. In 2019, we actually bought another Victorian house on Elm Street to use as an artist residence facility to expand really the remit of the museum. And then we took over the Khalil House, which was a recipient of an award last year. We had to pay market price for that Frank Lloyd Wright house. So when I went to my board of trustees, some of whom are sitting here today, and I said, we've got to save this house, they looked at me as though I was crazy. Having just bought 2 other houses, I began to fear for my tenure, let alone my life in Manchester. And this was during the pandemic, right? The first couple of months of the pandemic. What were we going to do? But it was really the activism of the community, and I've got a list of names, and I'm sorry, but I've got to read some of them because it's really the community organizers, Kate Markey, Katie Ferrara, Cody Carlson, some of you whom are here today, Craig St. Pierre, Gary Sampson, the great photographer, Ed, John, and Mayor Joyce Craig stepped in at the last minute to put her case forward that this house needed to be saved for the community. So a lot of people worked very hard, sacrificed a great deal. We're only a part of the way there because the house is in beautiful condition in some areas and in execrable condition in other areas. You know, there's water in the basement, the roof leaks, there's no heating. We're attacking those problems bit by bit. We've sold another one of our buildings in order to finance this. We've gotten a few very, very generous grants from people. But without your help, and I'm sorry if I missed some of your names, Arthur Sullivan, you stepped in at the last minute to talk to the diocese. All of this, the protests, the letter writing, we would not have gotten there without your help. And for that, we're very, very grateful. We're only one part of a much wider community effort. We've got a lot more to do, but I'm very optimistic that this city can rally around that. And so on behalf of all of these wonderful community activists and organizers, thank you very much for recognizing the efforts to save the Chandler House. It's a beautiful house. It doesn't look as awful as it does from the outside. The inside is just wonderful, and it's going to be open to the public, I hope, in a year or 2. Thanks.
Well, the story behind this next award begins in Ware on December 8, 1857, the day Charles Abner Hoyt was born. As a young man, he farmed for a time, then he clerked at a store in New Boston. Then it was on to the big city, working for Kidder and Chandler's old family store before he accepted a post at John B. Varick's department store. After 8 years, Charles took a position as salesman for Higgins Brothers Furniture in Concord, and he was so successful that in 1888, he bought the business and moved it to Manchester. Now, by this time, Charles had married Mary Louise Proctor, and they had a son named Proctor Hoyt. Charles' brother Maurice also joined him in the business. A 1903 publication proclaimed that the largest stock of furniture and of house furnishing goods carried by any single house north of Boston is by the Charles A. Hoyt Company, Beacon Building, Manchester. Indeed, Hoyt's occupied 28,000 square feet along Elm Street from numbers 810 through 824. The thriving company also maintained an annex on West Merrimack Street. In 1910, though, things got a little sticky. Mary Louise filed for a divorce, claiming Charles had abandoned her. In fact, 3 years earlier, Charles had relocated to Asheville, North Carolina, with 2 of his nieces, one of whom he later married. He became president of the United States Furniture Factory in Biltmore. Well, under Morris's leadership, C.A. Hoyt Company continued to flourish in Manchester. In 1934, it celebrated 50 years in business by occupying a 37,000 square foot brick building at the corner of Valley and Wilson Streets. The structure and its massive red fluorescent sign became an East Side landmark. Over time, Hoyt's furniture passed into other hands, including Josephine Mooney and still later the Longo family. Alas, all good things must come to an end, and in 2013, C.A. Hoyt announced it was going out of business. The massive store sat vacant for a time, caught up in a snafu over a B&M Railroad right-of-way issue on the Valley Street side of the building. Eventually, though, that problem was resolved, and in 2015, the property was purchased by veteran real estate developer Dick Anagnost. The plan was to renovate the building for use as a multi-tiered rehab center for recovery services. Key to the project was Anagnost's business partner, Andy Cruz, and his wife, Melissa Cruz, the board chair for Hope for New Hampshire Recovery, a peer-based substance use program. Soon, other tenants followed. The Willows Substance Use Treatment Center, a program of Families in Transition, New Horizons, providing housing and services for women and women with children. And the Mental Health Center of Greater Manchester's Mobile Crisis Response Team is also housed in the building. In 2019, Catholic Medical Center opened its Recovery and Treatment Center, Wilson Street Integrated Health, a collaboration between CMC and the Manchester Health Department. Of course, none of this happened until major renovation work took place inside and out. Where showrooms filled with dinette sets, bedroom suites, and a wide selection of carpet once stood, there are now modern offices and efficiency units for emergency housing. The building from which scores of Manchester families once furnished their homes has been repurposed into ground zero for the fight against substance abuse in the city. And as such, we are pleased to present an Adaptive Reuse Award to 267 Wilson Street LLC, owners of the former Hoyt Furniture Building. Accepting the award is Andy Cruz and Dick Anagnost.
Both be on the same side? You're both on the good side anyway, right?
In the middle.
Okay.
You're in the middle.
Tip it down.
Apparently, they all buy their flowers at the same place.
Good evening. I have a chance with a microphone. So, you might think we're here about historic rehab tonight, but I have a different story to tell you. This building has the benefit of community involvement and leadership. The way that this project got started is I got a call from Andy Cruz one day and says, our community is facing an epidemic of overdoses, drugs, and things we can't seem to control, and we don't have enough services available to fight this battle. It was his idea to come up with an integrated recovery center model that includes all of those organizations that were just listed, who meld together. You walk in on the first floor, you have Hope for Recovery. The first thing you do is get introduced to a recovery coach who's going to hold your hand through your entire battle against addiction. Next thing you do is you walk across the hall to CMC and get medically cleared. If there's an underlying mental health issue, you go to the 4th floor, and Manchester Mental Health points you in the right direction. It includes housing, it includes counseling, it includes outpatient, and it's all in one place. So what we've done essentially is, at Andy's urging, is created a historical, which this was an old mill, which none of us knew. Andy found it under 5 years of 1960 stucco when we first bought the building. What we ended up doing is creating a piece of preserving, as Joan and Howard would say, our history and our heritage with another piece of Manchester's history. Historical rehab is not easy. Everyone that's done it will tell you it's not an easy job, but it's very rewarding. But tonight, this building is not only a piece of history, it's an example of the private business community coming together to fight a problem that was created in our city outside of our control, but there weren't enough resources to do it, so people like Andy Cruz stand up to the plate, and they create things like this, and our byproduct is a beautiful historic building. So I'd like to have a round of applause for my partner, Andy, please. And now on to one more point, if I could beg your indulgence. So today's the 29th Annual Historic Preservation Awards. I was here on the first one. I was probably wearing the same t-shirt, but they didn't give me this pretty boutonniere to go with it. I started with historical rehab 32 years ago in Manchester with an old school and became enamored with the architecture. But my hat's off to this association because it has persevered through 29 years and it has made historic rehab fashionable, okay? It is what has created and preserved, as Joan would say, the history and heritage of our fine city. And the more buildings that came online, the more history was preserved, and this association deserves the credit for bringing those kinds of projects to the forefront for everybody to appreciate, and actually gave an incentive for people to go out and redevelop these properties. So I'd like a round of applause for the Manchester Historical Association, because even though I have had to chair this, and that's not an easy job, Howard, it is a worthwhile cause to continue to preserve our heritage. Thank you.
You know, I appreciate Dick recognizing, us bringing an issue forward. But when you have an issue and you've got a concern and you've got a passion, I'm a car dealer. Know how to sell cars very well. But when it goes to building a recovery center and trying to bring this model to this city, there's only a few people in this town that you can turn around and go to with this size, scale of project, with a lot of risk, with no opportunity for upside, just strictly doing it for the community in the middle of an opioid crisis where we knew we had to make a difference and try to do something. And that was Dick Anagnos. I brought this to him, and there was not a single question, never a doubt of, no, Andy, this isn't the right time, it doesn't make sense, it's financially not viable. If it's the right thing for the city and you all want to move forward with this, I'll 100% partner with you and we'll make it happen. So with that, Dick, thank you. I call him a partner, he's always in the foxhole with me. Give him a round of applause for what he does for this community.
Well, that concludes my role in the proceedings tonight. And for reasons which will become obvious in a moment, I'm going to sit down and turn things over to John Clayton.
Thank you, Ed. So our next award recipient was born in Manchester, just not this Manchester. Let the record show that tonight's Master of Ceremonies, Ed Bruder, was born in Manchester, Connecticut. It was his pursuit of a career in broadcasting that ultimately brought him to our Manchester, where his love for history has been able to flourish. Ed caught the radio bug in high school, as do many of his broadcasting colleagues. Since he was plagued with bad knees, however, sports were not an after-school option for him. So Ed would head home and pass the afternoons listening to the radio stations in Hartford, Connecticut. Since public schools required physical education credits for graduation, Ed's bad knees looked to be a real obstacle, until the athletic director asked him if he might be willing to be the public address announcer for the school's football and basketball games. But there was one more obstacle. To quote Ed, "I didn't know anything about basketball or football," he said. This was proved true when he announced that a running back had advanced the ball to the 53-yard line. Fortunately, a nearby cheerleader explained that on a football field, the numbers descend once you cross the 50-yard line. So when you watch the Patriots on Sunday, you'll know what the 47-yard line is. After high school, Ed's next step in broadcasting took something of a religious tone when he began producing radio programs for his public speaking professor at the University of Hartford, who happened to run the Connecticut Council of Churches. That led to a promotions job at a station in Hartford, and then in the fall of 1973, his radio career began in earnest. Actually, it began in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, at radio station WTWN, which Ed noted may be the worst call letters in radio history. That small market radio station allowed him to wear a lot of hats, working DJ shifts and newscasts, which prepared him for his next move to the metropolis of Keene, New Hampshire, WKNE. A year later, Ed landed a job at New Hampshire's premier news station, WGIR. Finally, he'd arrived in our Manchester. He wore many hats during his 10 years at GIR and was recognized with the very prestigious Peabody Award in 1977. Along the way, he opened a small recording studio, Man from Mars Production, it's a long story, which has been operating for 40 years. After several years at WJYY in Concord, in 1992, he then joined WZID and WFEA in Manchester for a 17-year run as a morning news anchor and traffic editor. That same year, he was named Broadcaster of the Year by the New Hampshire Association of Broadcasters. These days, you hear his voice on New Hampshire Public Radio. He was appointed by the Federal Communications Commission to serve as chairman of the New Hampshire State Emergency Communications Committee, a post he's held for 29 years. He only, please note I said only, spent 27 years as MC for the Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon on WMUR TV, and in line with that commitment, he also served as president of the Muscular Dystrophy Association of New Hampshire. Mr. Bruder also served as board chair of the American Red Cross Northern New England Blood Services, and he is justifiably proud to point out he just recently donated his 40th gallon of blood. Not pints, gallons. In his spare time, as if he had any, he's an adjunct faculty member at National Community College. He's also written 2 significant books on local history. His first, Granite and Ether, A Chronicle of New Hampshire Broadcasting, was like a busman's holiday for this radio lifer. His second, co-written with friend and travel buff Mo Quirin, is called Manchester's Airport, Flying Through Time. In researching these books, Ed discovered the Manchester Historic Association's Research Center, which many of you visited today. And to quote Humphrey Bogart, it was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. His involvement with this organization has been long and lasting. In addition to serving as the perennial host for this great event, which is a mammoth undertaking, he has served on our board of directors since 2010, and he is our immediate past president. He has delivered numerous history-related presentations at the Millyard Museum, and his walking tours of the Western Observatory and Derryfield Park are always well attended. For this and many other contributions to our community, we are proud to recognize Edward W. Bruder Jr. with the Manchester Historic Association's Individual Achievement Award. Clearly, he's not accustomed to public speaking, but we did ask him if he'd say a few words.
I suppose this means you're going to want me to write next year's script, too. I'm mystified but gratified about this. I'm still not quite sure why I'm being singled out among many people who have done an awful lot to put this event together. But I got to tell you, it's been really odd writing the script for an event that you know you're going to get an award at. But thank you all very much for that. And before you leave, somebody should point out, so I will, that the names of all the people on the 2 Historic Preservation Awards committees are near the back of your program booklet. One committee is charged with finding the nominees and deliberating for several months over what should be seen as the awards, except for this very last one here. And the other committee is the one that puts this event together. So there's a lot of people that have worked hard on it, and please go ahead and read their names and read our sponsors as well. At this point, the evening is done. We invite you to stay with us for coffee and dessert at the back of the hall. And thank you all for supporting the 29th Annual Historic Preservation Awards.